Greetings and welcome to The Thirsty Mage, the podcast whose sole purpose is to help maximize your video game enjoyment. Welcome to those new and old. I'm your host, David Lloyd, and in this episode I'll be talking about backlogs, Canadian Thanksgiving, and how they all relate to finally playing Danganronpa. But first, I'd like to draw some attention to a couple of ways that you can support our podcast, starting with our Patreon. For a couple bucks a month, you can get access to episodes a week before they're publicly available, as well as access to the host so that you can recommend games and topics to be featured on future podcasts. But if Patreon isn't your thing, you can still get access to those early episodes a week in advance by subscribing through Spotify. The cost is the same as Patreon, but if you prefer to get your content through Spotify, it's just another option for you. Lastly, one of the easiest and best ways to help us out is to tell a friend about our show. Maybe it's on Twitter or X or whatever it's called. Blue Sky, maybe it's a review somewhere on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, something like that. Maybe it's telling your cousin over Thanksgiving dinner. Every little bit counts. And speaking of Thanksgiving, that's exactly why I'm all by myself this episode. Between Paige still decompressing from PAX Australia and Jordan recuperating from his turkey coma, I'm here on my own to talk about my backlog and how it's one game lighter now that I'm finally playing the Spike Chunsoft hit Dangenronpa. So this came about specifically because I myself was visiting family over Thanksgiving, and I was away from my PS5, where I was working on a Kingdom Hearts playthrough, and I couldn't take it with me. It's a little bit too big for the packing into a car with a family. So I was able to bring my Steam Deck along with me, and basically, when I got there, it was time to see what did I want to play. So since I was currently working on a Square Enix game, I kind of had to skip over the 70 or so games I have on my Steam Deck from that particular publisher, and I wanted to choose something that wasn't from the that RPG Dynamo. But instead, I ended up going with another publisher that I'm particularly fond of, and that's Spike Chunsoft. So yeah, I went with Danganronpa as a game. I probably bought it years and years ago. It was in my Steam library. I remember it's on sale all the time. So I definitely picked it up at some point thinking like, oh yeah, I'm going to play this. Obviously not an RPG. This is more RPG adjacent, I guess. It's one of those games where it's not an RPG, but definitely is in kind of the all the people that kind of enjoy RPGs all seem to have played this game. I seem to be late to the boat on this one, so I thought it was about time to finally give it a try. I actually did try once to get into it, but I only played about a half an hour, and I'm easily distracted. I'm like a dog chasing cars when it comes to video games a lot of the time. So yeah, I ended up starting it up, and don't worry, there will be no spoilers. I'm not going to give away any of the twists. I won't give away any crucial details. I'll just start with some kind of basic, story beats or whatever, just kind of an overview that everyone should already know, and then kind of go into how the gameplay works and kind of my general feelings playing Danganronpa. So yeah, the game basically it's a visual novel. There's not too much in the way of gameplay per se. I guess you could almost think of it as I kind of compare it to an Ace Attorney game if you've ever played one of those and haven't played Danganronpa. So there's a lot of walking around. There's like you're in a school, so which I'll get to in a minute, but you basically have like a few rooms that you can kind of explore. But there is a linear story, and it's all done in a visual novel style where you see the characters profiles or whatever, you see pictures, and they do have voice acting for most of the dialogue, and they tell a story, and then I guess I'll get into that story. It'll make the gameplay make more sense. So the general overview of the story is that there are 15 students who all believe that they're on their way to attend I think it's Hope's Peak Academy. There's definitely the word hope is in there. It's supposed to be this very exclusive school in Japan. It's basically, if you go to the school, you're guaranteed to be successful in life, is basically the way it works. So you have all these people, all these 15 students that have all done, they're all the best at something. They're all the ultimate something. So like there's a character who's the ultimate programmer, computer programmer, and then there's someone who's like the ultimate I think it was like fanfic writer, the ultimate romance novel writer, the ultimate athlete, the ultimate fighter. Like they all have, there's all these different characters that are really good at something. All except the character that the player plays as, who is Makoto. So that character, he won a lottery to get in. He makes it known right off the bat that he's just average student, has average grades, average interests. Uh, Nothing particularly spectacular about him, but he was considered the ultimate lucky student because he won this attendance lottery to get in. So when all the students first arrive, they quickly find out that the school is not what they were told it would be. It ends up becoming, I guess, like a uh, Lord of the Flies, or what's that? I'm just trying to think of that game with Katniss where they take all the kids, and it's a battle royale, I guess would be, where the intention is that the person that's kidnapped him, or the entity, I guess, that's kidnapped him in this case, is Monokuma. So even if you've never played Danganronpa, you've probably seen this bear that's half good, half evil, and this is kind of the mastermind around the whole story. And so Monokuma has these 15 students locked in the school, and is basically wants them to kill each other. I guess is the thing. So the whole point of the story is that um, if a student kills another student and is not found as the guilty party, that person will be reintegrated back into society while the rest of the other students are killed. However, if the students do figure out who the murderer was, only the murderer is executed, and then the remaining students continue on. So that's basically the story: is that you go in these waves of a student is killed, the remainder of the students go through this investigative phase, then they have a trial where the evidence is then presented, and then you need to figure out, based on those, who the killer is. And so, yeah, again, it's linear, so it's not like uh, there's no, as far as I could tell anyway, there's no like, oh, if you get it wrong you go down this other path, or it's like there's one intended course of action of what's supposed to happen. So each kind of phase of the game is, you have this free time period where you're allowed to explore the school. A murder happens. Then there's an evidence gathering period where, again, it's still in the visual novel style of kind of walking around, clicking on things, and gathering evidence that you'll then use in the trial portion. And the trial, again, like I said, the trial portion is a very Ace Attorney feel to it anyway, except that it's added these kind of mini games. So a character will be talking, or a number of characters will be talking, and then you'll see some of the dialogue is highlighted, and one of these, as you're going through all the statements, one of the statements is wrong, so you have to find the contradictory statement, and you shoot that statement with a piece of evidence. So there could be a statement like, I was in the library, and then there's a bullet on the screen that says like Jack's account or something, and then you would have to fire the statement at the other statement, and it kind of explodes, and then you've called out the person of like, well, no, I know this is wrong because of this evidence, and then it kind of continues on from there. So there's a few different mini games that are involved in this trial period. So you have that shooting kind of thing. Then you have they call it the hangman's phrase, where there'll be a piece of evidence that you have. There's like a contradictory statement will be made, and then there's like one particular thing that calls it out. So you would then see at the bottom where it's like it's spelled, but it's like the hangman's puzzle, where it's like you see like 2 or 3 letters, and then you have to spell it out. So what happens is the letters, random letters, will start coming up on the screen, and then you'll shoot the letters in the order to write it. So yeah, like if the thing was like a handgun or something, you'd spell out the word handgun, and then again you're continuing through the trial, and the whole point is just to figure out who done it and who got to the end. Usually it ends with a rhythm game, which I completely overthought at the time, because what happens is you'll get into like a verbal debate with one particular student, and then so there's a rhythm game, so you're tapping A as the uh, as the the things go by. So you're tapping at a beat basically, and then when the other person says something, then you have to shoot the statement with the Y button. And then and that's as simple as it is in the first trial. In the second trial, you have to reload. They add the letter X, so then you have to reload bullets. So that's like the next, like as complicated as that got. So I was under the impression there was more to it, but I quickly found out that is actually not the case. So yeah, so then there's it goes through that. So once you figured out who the actual killer is, there's kind of this hilarious execution cutscene. I mean, hell, like it's funny in the sense of it's very specific and outrageous and outlandish. Um, little macabre in the sense that it's like executing teenagers. So you have to have kind of a base level of what you can handle, I guess. I would say if you have any kind of apprehension about a story of kind of that battle royale of children or like teenagers, obviously like high schoolers or whatever. If you don't want to see them killing each other, then I would say maybe the game's not for you. But the story is interesting enough. Like there's I know I know it's one of those stories. There's like it wants you to think one way, and then it'll kind of give you a curveball, and more often than not, the curveball like you can kind of see coming, so it's not a huge surprise, but it's still a very riveting story. Like I'm curious in how everything goes. The characters, I think, are fairly fleshed out. Like they all have different personalities. Like most of the time, each character is kind of taking on a cliche. You got like a comic book nerd who's into anime, and then there's um, this large girl that's like the Japan's strongest fighter, and then there's another girl who's a great swimmer, so she's kind of that athletic jock stereotype. Then you got the rich kid, like there's all these different stereotypes. So some of them you're supposed to like, some of them you're supposed to hate, and you get invested in what happens, and then as they start to be knocked off or get themselves into trouble, there's that little bit of like, oh, that's too bad. I kind of like that. I would have liked to seen more of that character or whatever. But so far, story wise, I think it's kind of living up to the hype to a certain extent. The game was nice enough to tell me that it hit the halfway point when I finished the third trial. So I think I'm about 6 or 7 hours in. So I guess the game in itself is about 12 to 14 hours. I would say that the trials are a little disappointing. They're a little bit easy in the sense of, like I said, they're it's usually not too obvious. Like they do want to do like they don't want to show you who the killer is right away, obviously. But I feel like I could have, before it even happened, or as it happened, it's been easy enough to be like, well, I'm pretty sure it's going to be this person, based on how it goes. But um, so it's fine, I guess. The trial, like again, like I said, I guess I was expecting something a little more complicated in the trial. Like I thought uh, there'd be a little bit more challenge to it. Like the mini games are pretty basic. I'm playing in the medium difficulty, I guess. So I haven't failed any trials or even really come close. Like there's a lot of leeway that they give you for making wrong answers. Uh, the first trial was really easy, and I think it was just so that you could kind of get your feet wet. The second trial was a bit harder. It took some work. They do change a couple of the mini games up a little bit, so you have to think a little bit harder. But then there wasn't a whole lot of changes in the third trial. So because I was kind of figured out the mini games, the trial seemed pretty easy. And if you play and you get to this far, you kind of knew right off the bat where the third trial was going, so it was a bit disappointing there. But overall, I'm still interested. At the end of the third trial, there was some new information introduced to the story, which makes me like excited to get back into it. And I guess that's kind of the hallmark of any successful game, is to kind of have uh, that if it can generate that feeling of I want to play a little bit longer, or I can't wait to play again tomorrow, that sort of thing, then I would say it's accomplishing what it sets out to do. So I would say in that sense, Danganronpa is a pretty good game to play so far. We'll see if things change by the end of the story. Definitely want to get to the end. Yeah, that'll be quite interesting. Like I said, playing it on my Steam Deck, but if anyone wants to pick it up, I almost positive it's on every platform now. I believe the Switch version came out last year, not too long ago, and there's obviously PlayStation version, Steam version. These games regularly go on sale, so don't pay full price for them. Like, they wait for sale. I think they're even as high as like 70 or 80% off. Like, I'm pretty sure I bought at a steep discount. There's also a second and third game, and usually I believe there's often a bundle option as well. So I don't know if people will see. I'm not ready to drop more money on the second and third yet, until I finish the first one. But that's definitely an option. I'm pretty sure the Switch one is actually a bundle, so we'll have to look into that. But yeah, for anyone who's been thinking about it, hopefully that's gives you a little bit of information on whether it's something that you'd like to play. So getting back to backlogs, though, I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about it, because I've been harping on this podcast a lot lately about backlogged.com. That's BACKLOGGD.com. I've just found it a great tool for actually keeping track of the games I purchased now. I've really, like, in the past week, have tried to make an effort of getting, like, any game that I purchased, putting it on this list. And one of the reasons why I was able to get a lot of my physical media up on that list is because in my hometown, where I went home for Thanksgiving, we have a retro game store, I guess, or they sell retro games, but it's more of a kind of overall physical media secondhand store, I guess would be the way to put it. There's movies, DVDs, Blu-rays, audio. It's got everything. It's got every system you could think of in there. And I always go there because they're actually priced very reasonably. Yeah, it has everything. I've picked up lots of stuff from there. I picked up like Contra and different Marble Madness for NES, like old games like that. But I've also been buying like Square Enix games a lot. And this weekend was no exception, because I ended up picking up 2 Star Oceans. One was Integrity and Faithfulness, I think, was the first one. And then the second one is the most recent one, The Divine Force. And, as I'm holding them in my hands, it dawns on me that I own all the Star Oceans now. I believe there's been like 7 or 8, because they've been going from like almost the beginning. Like, there was PSP for sure, but even earlier than that, because I'm pretty sure they did a remake on PSP. But I played, the only one I've actually played is the first one, or the remake of the first one, First Departure R, which was on Switch. And what's funny is I didn't particularly like it, because the combat was kind of annoying. But I was digging the story, I guess. So it's hard to kind of ignore like, if you're buying Square Enix games, Star Ocean, I think, has like 7 or 8 entries at this point. When you look at like Xbox 360 era, PS4, the recent one on Star Ocean. So I don't really know how I'm gonna avoid the franchise if I'm trying to play through as many Square Enixes as I can. So I thought, well, I'm gonna play it eventually. I'm gonna pick it up. So yeah, so I ended up picking up those 2 Star Oceans, and when I got home, put them on my shelf, and realized, like, oh man, I got this huge Square Enix shelf, and I haven't put it on my backlog yet. So went on to backlog.com and it didn't take long to get to about 73 games. So I've got most of those games are the ones I own a physical copy of. And then I went through some of I think the PS Store. I went through and got a lot of those up there. And then I still have to go through my Steam catalog. Um, I'm pretty sure when Epic first came out, I signed up for that because they're giving away free games, particularly Thimbleweed Park. I want to play at some point. And I'm pretty sure that's on my Epic Store game account. I have old Neon Falcons in my GOG account. What was it? Was Xanadu? Nah, I can't remember. It was those old ones. Anyway, 73 is still not even all the games I have, and at the time I was almost kind of sad to a certain extent because I'm like, man, I've spent all this money. I really should be playing these games. Like, I don't want to be spending money on something I'm never going to play, even though my backlog is my retirement plan at one day. I will be the one old guy who never leaves his room with a big lazy boy chair and whatever controller happens to be, in at the time. I'll still have a shelf of video games and all my old systems, and the nurse will just have to bring me my dinner and other meals and pills and whatnot to my room because I'm not leaving there until I played everything. But it was still daunting to see, to see the list, and it's not even in its entirety yet. And I mentioned it in the Discord, and then the response was kind of like, don't look at it as this kind of mountain of this Herculean task to get through it, or and also not to look at it as, in a shameful way, but just to look at this massive catalog of great games that you have access to anytime. And yeah, I kind of believe that, I will play these games eventually, and it is pretty neat to have these, accessible, have them available, especially when these the Nintendo eShops are disappearing. Like, we're down to just the Switch now, so all those old games, like, unless you have them physically, it's gonna be, you can't buy them anymore. And having just came from the retro store, I can tell you that Nintendo games are not losing their value anytime soon. So having some of those games on hold one day, will save you money eventually if you ever want to play them. So it's just kind of glad to have that new perspective, or that different perspective. So I guess the kind of point I'm getting to in this long rant is that you shouldn't feel bad about having huge backlog. We all got one, but I found seeing the actual list or having it available to me has been very useful, in the sense of I'm kind of making a commitment to myself for every one new game I purchase, trying to take 2 off the backlog, before doing it or before playing it. So right now, I guess for me that would be Kingdom Hearts and Danganronpa. So I guess I'll allow myself to buy something new when it comes out. What that will be, not sure yet. I feel like I've got enough Star Oceans in the hopper that I don't have to pay full price for the one that's about to come out. So maybe I'll skip on that for now. But yeah, we'll see. Plenty coming out in 2024. So maybe save up my money for that and kind of see where we go from there. But yeah, I guess a little bit of a short one this week, just because, like I said, with Thanksgiving and everyone's schedule being completely out of whack. Unfortunately, we don't have too much to talk about this week, but hopefully you enjoyed that rant on Danganronpa and backlogs. But before I go, I just want to make sure that everyone knows about Paige's coverage of PAX Australia. So the I know at RPG Site she has a lot of like the written previews of and breakdowns of what she saw there. On her Twitter page, Page G Guy. She's just recently, actually, as of today of recording, posted a whole lot of pictures that she took while she was there. So if you kind of want to seeing, pictures of what's going on there, you can go there. Or like I said, you can head over to RPG site to check that out. You can also check in with one of our Discord friends, one of the individual that's been around. I know I've known him since the Nintendo World Report days. Lemonade or Lemonade goes by a couple things. There's a great video that he's put on, which is the PAX Australia experience. So there's like video of walking through PAX and developer interviews with some of the indie devs that are there and that sort of thing. So that's worth checking out as well. And lastly, well, I guess I'll say also to check out Talking Nintendo podcast if you haven't already, where you can hear more of Casey Gibson. And for Jordan, I know he's put out a couple more reviews lately, or the Review Machine. So you could check out Nintendo World Reports. He's got I can't remember what the game was, but it's clearly a River City Ransom inspired game. Kind of a beat 'em up in that sense. Just put one of those out, so you can check out his coverage there. But I guess that'll be it for this week's episode. Again, want to thank everyone for sticking with us. I want to thank the new subscribers or the new folks that are joining us. The podcast has been growing at a reasonable level, so I'm happy that we have new friends. And like I said, at any time, if you want to come talk a little bit more with us, we have a Discord channel, which you can, the easiest way to join it would be the link at thethirstymage.com. And, or we have the link on our Twitter or Blue Sky handles as well. So we'd love to have you out. But I guess until then, we'll see everyone out at the next episode. Bye for now.